Unscripted, unshackled, uncouth.
What you're about to hear is for more mature audiences only.
It's Miguel and Holly, Uncensored.
Welcome to Miguel and Holly Uncensored. We are live on the Miguel and Holly and the Hits 961 Facebook pages and on the Miguel and Holly YouTube channel. If you want to go there and take a look at it. Make sure to check out our other podcasts like Miguel and Holly Full Show, Blown Off, Queen City Confessions. We have it all. And we want to start something new. So on our Instagram page, we do on Tuesdays, Ask Us Anything to sort of, people can ask us each individual questions or all a group question. But I kind of want to do that also on the podcast. But we can do that through the iHeartRadio app. So they have a little talkback feature that you can use there. So let's see if we can get some people to send some talkback messages and ask us a question. And then we'll sprinkle them, throughout the week on the podcast.
I think that's such a good idea. Not only questions, but like just your voice on the podcast as a Platypus Posse partner, interacting and doing the thing. So yeah, definitely use the iHeartRadio app. All you do is just type in Hits 96.1 and then use the little microphone to do it.
Boom. And so just say, hey, my name's Mandy and I listen from fill in the blank. And I just want to ask producer Kelbin, how much do you love Holly O'Connor?
Oh. Did Mandy sound like that?
No.
Any Mandy? Does
any Mandy?
Sound like
I mean,
okay.
No, I don't know. But I don't know. I'm just making up one. That's
yes.
A Mandy could sound like that. I have no clue.
Okay. You never know.
Yeah. So just make sure to go do that. Holly.
Yeah.
We didn't spend a lot of time talking about this on Friday's podcast because we were doing my origin story and then on the show today. But you went to your mom's funeral.
I did
in Ohio.
Saturday.
Yeah. How
I did.
was the journey there? Walk us through sort of what all happened.
It was good. It was Maya and I, my person was not able to make it, unfortunately. So Maya and I flew up on Friday, and that was just, let me quickly detour about taking a child on a plane who was so excited. Like, to her, this was like a vacation. Like, she got to go on a plane, she got to see, Ohio. She hadn't been up to Ohio for years. So she was super pumped. And like, I was afraid to say this for a second, but we're honest on the podcast. Like, I live in Tampa, but I split time, but then I'd fly to Charlotte. Right. So I'm in the airport a lot. So for me, it's like quickly moving through the steps, one through the next. And so with Maya, it was not quick.
Oh, no.
And I mean, she was like a tourist. And I was like, why? Whoa. I was like, why are you going in a store? I didn't tell you to go to the store. Get over here. And she was not listening. I'm like, get over here. And she's like, you said we could go to the stores. Well, we were actually running late on Friday, so we did not have time. I'm like, on the way home, we will. It was a mess. Like, she was just trying to she's touching everything.
Put it down.
Other people's luggage. I'm like, just stand in front of me and don't move. But it was just, I was trying to see it from her perspective. Like, it was like a whole world,
Mm-hmm.
But we finally did get to Ohio. We stayed with my Auntie Pearl, who is like a very near carbon copy to my mom. So seeing her was a little emotional. They're very, they are different, but they're very similar in a lot of ways, especially looks, because my mom was always sort of blonde. My Auntie Pearl had dark hair, but lately Auntie Pearl's been dyeing her hair lighter.
Okay,
so I'm like,
you're like, whoa, this is too much. I can't handle it right now. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Somebody has to come in just really quick.
Hold on, okay.
Hold on.
Someone's cliffhanger.
I know, right?
Hey. Love me some.
Okay, it's like a fun prize. Sorry.
Oh,
I just got something. Somebody had to walk in and give me something. It was something I very much wanted. So save that for later. Anyway, so yeah, Auntie Pearl it was bizarre seeing her. My Uncle Joe was staying with her as well. That's Pearl and my mom's younger brother. So it was a whole little reunion. And Saturday was a whirlwind. It was. I mean, overall, I think it went as well as possible. I hope that my mom was happy with what we did. I think it was exactly what she would have wanted at church. There were a couple things that were a little off, but you would never have known unless it were me. Like that, for example, like one of my cousins thought that the funeral started at 1, but it started at 11, so she didn't make it.
Oh no.
And she was gonna do a reading, but then like somebody else had to step in at the last moment. Maya, and I don't want to like, I hate to like spread her business, but I think it's good to hear this. Like, she's been pretty nonchalant about my mom's death. She did have one night where she cried and cried a lot about it, but that was it. And even like on the day that it happened, she was just like, okay, well, that happened, but it was really, I think it all kind of really came down on her at the funeral because we had the wake from 10 to 11 where people were just coming and greeting, and then the funeral 11 to noon. And Maya didn't, I mean, obviously she had no idea what to expect. But once people started coming in, obviously they were looking to find me. And so many people were coming up to me. It was like sort of bam, bam, bam in succession. And they all say the same thing. And then I sort of say the same thing. And there some variation of, I'm so sorry for your loss. Like we loved your mom, like all the same. Everyone just loving my mom's, singing her praises, telling me how sorry they were for my loss. And Maya was, like, right by me the whole time, and I was like, "Why don't you go somewhere else? Like, go stand with Aunt Ashley. That's my brother's wife." But the problem is Maya doesn't know any of these people as well as she knows me.
Right.
And it was a shame. Both of us were so devastated that my person couldn't come. I do wish he had been there, not for me, but for Maya at that point, because it would have given her another very close adult that she feels safe with. Not that she didn't with our family, but she hasn't seen them. I mean, she hasn't seen any of these people in a long time. So she wanted to stand right by me. And as all these people are saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry for your loss," and I, do all this, then I'm responding with, "I know, I'm so sorry too, but I'm so glad that she's at peace. And I'm so, grateful that the suffering is over, hers and ours. And it's very sad all the way around." So we're having this conversation. I'm having it over and over with all these people, which you kind of go on autopilot a little bit, but you mean it,
Right.
It's very normal. Well, at one point, I noticed that Maya is now head in my side, like her face is buried. So then I realized she's crying. And so then I kind of like excuse myself because people notice this too, but they just keep talking like it's fine. And I'm like, I need to be the barrier here. Like, and I had a choice to make because my mom, I think, like our training in my family generationally is to like get through it and get it done. Like almost like the show must go on. So that's where I get a lot of my toughness from is my mom for that awesome reason. But as someone who's also breaking generational traumas, I had a choice where I could be like, "Okay, go sit. I will be there in a second to help you, but I need to do this." Or I could be like, "Nope, Maya's more important." So I chose the Maya path. And I think I was in the moment, I'm like, this is very difficult for me. So, but we're going to do the right choice. So I pulled her into a separate room and I'm like, "What's wrong? What's going on? Like, talk to me." And she was like, "I don't like what you're saying. I don't like what you're saying about Nana." And I'm like, "Okay, well, I am glad that she's no longer suffering. And I'm really sorry you're having a hard time with this, but I have to say something to these people. This is just what we have to do right now." And she's like, "But I don't like it. And every person comes up and then they want to say something to me and I don't like it. And it's making me cry." And I'm like, "I get it." So she's like having a hard time. We think we're calming down. And then like another wave will hit her and she's like crying again. And I'm like, okay, now I do have to go greet people. So I'm like offering her options. I'm like, "You want to go stand with Uncle Patrick? Do you want to go stand with Aunt Ashley? What about Auntie Pearl? What about our cousin Heather or somebody? Do you want to go stand with somebody?" No, she did not want to stand with anybody. I'm like, "Do you want to stay here by yourself?" No, she didn't want to do that. I'm like, "Okay, then we don't have a lot of options. So you're going to stay by me. You put your head right here and that's fine. And I got you, but I'm also going to go do my thing." So then she kind of just barnacled on, and I went out and did the thing and I can hear her like crying through it. But I'm like, she's having a hard time. And everyone's like, "Oh," but it's like, I don't know. It's just surprising when people don't, I guess, I don't know. It was just an odd time, but we made it through all of that. And I made it through all that without crying. Some of my friends came, some of my high school friends and also college friends that are in the area. And one of my best friends from high school, Katie, came, and also Mary Beth, who is just the most delightful human being. She was also one of my best friends from high school. And I was just so thrilled to see her. And I was like, thank you so much for coming. So the two of them from high school came. And then near the very beginning, after I was coming around a corner and I saw this woman, I almost said girl, but I saw this woman. She was like, hey. And I was like, hey, it was one of my college roommates who looked like a grown ass woman. Like,
oh no.
No.
I hadn't seen her in person. Truly, I think it's been since college.
Oh
So
wow.
almost what, 20 years almost,
Oh dang.
which is shocking to me that this is even a conversation.
Mm.
But she just looked so professional. And I was like, we were so young when we were in college, but she came and I was like, oh my God, like, oh my God, you're here. I was like, where do you live? Where did you come? So she's now living sort of in the Cleveland area.
Mm.
And so she had seen it online and decided to come. And I was just so thankful. And I didn't get to speak to her too much. Unfortunately, on a day like that, you wish you could really sit down and like have a cup of coffee or something with someone.
Right.
It was so cool that she came in. My other college roommate, Jessica, who's like one of my college best friends, she was there. And she came and it was just, I only saw these women for like 5 minutes or less, but it was so awesome that they came and that they were there for my mom too.
It's
it
so
was just really
weird
cool.
when you see people like that from a long time ago. I just recently on my Instagram, I had a college radio show and sort of like my Holly before Holly. We called her Jamie Lynn on the air. And we did a night show together our junior year of college. And then we did the morning show together. And there was this guy, Brian, that we brought on to do the morning show with us. And like Jamie's goal that whole year was like, I'm going to get with Brian. And I'm like, girl, you should not. This is not going to be good. Well, they got married.
What? They got married?
They got married and they have kids. And for some reason, I never see her on Instagram, but she popped up in my stories. And I got emotional because it was like her with their two kids. And like one of them is a preteen and they were doing a birthday party. And I was like, we used to get wasted at Georgia Southern together and like you would plot about trying to get Brian and now y'all got two kids in a house and you got kids. And I was just like, I messaged her and I'm like, this is crazy. And she's like, just to think I would just sit in that studio and look at him and be like, I'm gonna get Brian one day. And I'm like, you did, girl, you got him.
Get it.
Insane. So I had that same type of feeling this weekend. So crazy.
Yes, it really is. It like transports you to a different time. And I wish that I had had more time to sit with each of them and just talk and all that. But I unfortunately couldn't, you know, you can't. But I wish I could have. And then I got some beautiful flowers from my friend Christy, who had sent flowers through. And our other friends, Chris and Tiffany, had sent some flowers. And the people that sent, and my Aunt Wilma, they had sent flowers. Like the whole thing was just so generous. And also then we got to the luncheon part of it, and like these people that my Auntie Pearl does stuff at the church with, I guess they're kind of like it's like the bat signal goes out and they just make bakery and pastries for the luncheon. And it was like all stuff that I had grown up with, like these same like both like Polish cookies and Italian cookies. And I was just like, I am just wowed that this all came together. I was okay through the mass, and I had requested because my cousin Don plays the organ at the church actually, and so he like spearheaded this whole thing to put together the mass. And I said some of my mom's favorite like church hymns and music stuff, you know. And by the time the mass was over, one of her favorite songs, I'm thinking about it now, I get teared up, but like one of her favorite church songs that always makes me think of her is playing. And that's when I really started to have like a moment. And I was like, the priest had walked down, and I'm like, do we follow? It's like a wedding. Do we start to go? Like, do we go? And I'm like, Auntie Pearl, do we go? She's like, I don't know. And I'm like, well, we're just gonna walk down like we're just coming out of a wedding.
Right.
And so then I had to go like take a deep dive into the bathroom really quick and just cry a little bit. But I think it was overall really good. And it was good to see my family, who for the most part got together on Saturday night for a little like a little dinner. And like all walks of my family, all of the family that showed up or sent cards or whatever was so beautiful. And actually, I want to do a little side shout out because my mom would have been 75 years old last Wednesday. One of her cousins, because we had a pretty big family. It's not that big anymore, but they had a pretty big Italian family. And so one of her first cousins, Jeannie, she'd like grown up with my mom. The two of them were very close. Besides Auntie Pearl, like she and cousin Jeannie were very close. And I didn't know cousin Jeannie very well, not very well, especially since they had moved sort of to the Sandusky area and we were still in the Cleveland area. But my mom always talked about her, had great stories. She found us on Facebook when Facebook became a thing. And cousin Jeannie is probably right around the same age as my mother. I don't know if she's like a little younger or right around, but whatever. She's in that age bracket. Cousin Jeannie watches almost all of our Facebook stuff that we do.
Oh, really?
I know. And a part of me cringes a little bit thinking about that.
Lordy.
A little bit. Because nobody else in my family really, gets down with what we do. Not because they don't like it, but just because they're busy. And they're like, you do your thing. That's cute. But my cousin Jeannie is just like, even said, like, came up and hugged me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, cousin Jeannie, you came from Sandusky. Thank you so much for making the drive over. And she's like, you're so welcome. I miss your mother. I love your mother. Tell Miguel, I love every time you guys do the Facebook live. I always try to come. And I'm just like, thank you.
Yay! Said some shit on the Facebook lives.
Right?
I know.
Hey, cousin Jeannie, how you doing, girl?
Hey, Miss Barbara.
Oh, loves it. I was really blown away, and I can see sometimes she'll pop up and be like, "Hey," like a heart emoji, and that's so bizarre to me. I love it. Just don't ever think about that. So overall the day was good. It was great and a little weird to be around the family again, and I don't mean weird in a bad way. It's just it was so good to walk back in time almost and feel that same close connection. But at the same time, I'm such a different person now than I was when I was around them all the time, because it's been years. I mean, I moved, and then when we moved again and again and again, and it always feels like I'm a little bit nervous. Like I a little bit go back to who I was or who I thought that they wanted me to be. I don't think they expect that. If they heard this, they'd probably be like, knock it off.
Right.
But it's very weird. I feel like right?
Oh, 100%. I always say that, like, especially when I first brought Abe around my family for the first time, and I'm like, you're going to see a different Miguel, because I still feel like, one of the babies in the family, even though I'm close to 40 in a few years,
Right.
So it's like, usually when I'm around family, like, I get very quiet. I don't say a whole lot unless somebody says something to me. Then usually I'm just sitting there looking at everybody and just listening to, all my uncles and aunts and stuff talk. And I still feel like I'm a little kid. So I 100% fall back into that role.
Yeah, I fall into this role. And I also, except sort of the opposite happens, is that I get nervous. And of course, what happens when I get nervous?
Talking.
Vodka?
I talk.
Oh,
I
talking.
Holly
can't stop.
just goes talking.
You nervous a lot then, girl.
A lot of nerves. In fact, we went to go see my cousin Brittany, who's she has two young sons, and one of them had been very, very sick with something that he had, been hospitalized for, but luckily is okay and is out of the hospital as of last week. So I wanted to go over and see the boys, and we pop in. We were only going to stay for half an hour because it was going to be their bedtime, and I didn't want to impede on that. So we sort of blew in like a hurricane, and then at 7:30 promptly, I was like, "Well, look at the time. I don't want to keep you up." So we left, and in the car, Maya was like, "Why are you acting like that?" And I was like, "What? Like what?" She's like, "I don't want to say it." I'm like, tell me, what am I being like?" And she's like, "It feels like you're drunk." And I'm like, "What?" Okay, mind you, I don't drink around Maya.
Oh.
Maybe like twice in my whole entire life, I've been a little tipsy while she's been in the vicinity. But that's it. Like literally, I could count on like it would be two times. But she's seen what adults look like when they're drunk. And I was like, I hadn't had any alcohol that day at all. So don't think that it was me that I had some wine or something. I hadn't. She's like, it just feels like you're like drunk. And I'm like, what is happening? And I was like, I'm sorry. I'm like, I think it's the going overboard with trying to be super positive and oh my god, oh my gosh, oh my god. And I'm like doing the thing, and it's almost the equivalent of being on.
Right.
That's what I was gonna say. You were like on.
I was on. I was me plus, at this point, it's probably plus 20%.
Oh God.
But I don't think I do it for, I was trying to really work it out with her. I'm like, I don't think I do it for a bad reason. I said, sometimes like I get nervous and I think that I overtalk a little bit. So there's that. Um, Sometimes I think you have to be yourself plus 10% when you don't want to schlep in and be like a sad sack.
Right.
I wanted to convey that I was so glad to see them and so happy for the boys and the one being well finally. And I think I use my voice and my persona and my facial expressions and my gesticulations to try to convey that happiness. And I'm like, does that make sense? I was like, I'm not telling you you have to act fake, but sometimes you do need to boost yourself up a little bit when you're interacting with people so that they can see what you're feeling. Like nobody knows what you're feeling unless you're expressing it. So
Right.
that was a little weird to me.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking about that a lot.
I mean, I feel like that's what you do when you are around people that you're not around all the time. That you do that. I think that's probably why like I sometimes get a little more tired when we hang out with like our friends here in Charlotte, because like we aren't like we've established a friendship, but they don't know like this other side of me. And I just don't feel comfortable. Like if I'm around like my friends from St. Pete, and like usually what we would do is, everybody's talking at brunch or whatever. And usually I'm just listening, outside of this show. Like I'm not the one that's like being loud and talking and, saying funny stuff. But because they're new people, you just feel like you have to like say a little bit more, entertain a little bit more, in this case, hanging out as opposed to like, being in a serious conversation with the people you were around this past weekend. But no, I totally understand that 100%.
Right.
It's also like a little mini guard too, because you're not going to be bawling your eyes out.
Right.
What is like, nobody expects that. But in the case that was to happen, like you're not going to be doing that if you're not comfortable, especially,
Right. Yeah. There's a lot of feelings. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, in order to not go into the rabbit hole of all the feelings, we're just going to,
do this.
be on.
Yeah.
It was an interesting thing to think about. And then I immediately felt bad. And I'm like, am I showing her that I'm being fake? But I didn't think I was being fake. I was being a different version than me. Y'all, it's just that she doesn't see this version of me. This is not who I am to her. I am like a cantankerous, grumpy mom. And so I think when I am like the radio version of me, she's like, what's wrong with you?
Like you drunk.
She also doesn't understand like grief and being in that situation. She doesn't. She's just seeing the outer surface of the interactions that she just doesn't understand. Like how you referenced when she was crying and what you were saying, the same thing. She probably just doesn't understand that you kind of do have to be on if that's what you are comfortable doing. Right.
It helps. And I said that to her. I said, sometimes, this to help get us through, us as a human race, hard things, you almost have to fake it till you make it, where maybe you're not feeling confident and maybe you're not feeling happy right now. But how else are you supposed to get through life without a little bit of armor? And that's the armor. You just pretend to project confidence to get through a particular situation. And it has served me very well through my life. And I think that it's okay to teach her that, sometimes you have to do stuff to make yourself get through it. And it's just an interesting thing to parent. Like it's an interesting thing to have to teach. Whereas, because she's very literal. So I just sort of picked this up, didn't ask questions about it. I would just take mental notes as a kid, like watching my mom do her thing. And I'm like, oh, that's how we do this here. This is what we do here. But she is a very much like call you out, ask questions. Why is this happening? And so having to teach that is interesting. It's interesting. Oh, and to cap this whole thing off, it was really good to see my brother. Like I just don't see him that often. And in person, he's a delight, pretty much. Like he had a fresh new haircut. I haven't seen him in like a year because he doesn't do social media. And I was like, oh my gosh, you look great. Like you look at with your little haircut. Look great. And he's like, what? It's the same person. I'm like, I know, but Patrick, I haven't seen you in a year. I don't know what you look like. I don't interact with you. Like a message or something on FaceTime would be nice. Whatever. But it's just he doesn't do that kind of thing, and that's fine. So it's good to see him and his wife. It was good to see them because the last time we saw them, it was their wedding. So it was great to see them, and it was really nice to spend time with everybody. So,
did you have any moments of like I find in situations like at a funeral, like when everyone's sad, there's usually like one moment of levity that sort of like breaks the tension. Like at my grandmother's funeral, they were trying to play like her favorite hymnal, but like they pulled up this like YouTube version that was like, it was like so bad that everyone was everyone was like, wait, is somebody gonna try to find another link or something? But everybody was just smiling. They were like, amen. Miss Cole would have loved it. Mm-hmm. What in the world? But everyone just had to laugh because it was just like so bad. So I wonder, was there any moments like that where it just everyone was just like, all right, we can all just smile for a second?
I think I was thinking, no, not really. But there was, because and this, I was so proud of Maya for this. So she was there's different parts to the Catholic Mass, and one of them is doing the prayer, like the petitions. So in part of the Catholic Mass, what you do is you pray for other people. And in funeral masses particularly, a couple of, like, there's probably like 5 or 6 things that you pray, and a couple in the funeral mass are like, you pray for the person. So it would be something along the lines of, for our sister Margaret, who had the body of Christ and led a holy life, and there's the things, and then the person reading them is like, in Jesus' name we pray, and they raise their hand. This happens at every mass, not just funeral masses. And the person reading is like, in Jesus' name we pray, and they put their hand up, and then the whole congregation, everybody goes, Lord have mercy, or something. And this is a very common thing. Well, since, Maya goes to a Catholic school, she's had some experience with doing these every now and then. Like, they swap out kids in the classroom to help in the weekly mass or whatever. So early on, like when we were planning the funeral, she's like, I want to do those. And I'm like, I don't know. I was like, I don't know. This is going to be tough. I said, you might be sad because this is not just a normal mass. It's for Nana, and there's gonna be a lot of people there. And she was like, no, I got it. I'm gonna do it. And I'm like, I asked twice. I'm like, are you sure? Because this is a big ask. There's only like 3 reading parts, and you're gonna be one of them. Normally an adult does it. She's like, I can do it. I'm like, okay. Well, then if you revert back to my story, she has lost it prior to the mass. She is sobbing. At one point, Auntie Pearl came over and she goes, is Maya going to be able to do the reading?
Oh,
I was like, I don't know. I know. Well, Ever's the planner.
Right. She's like, do I need to put somebody to fill in right now? What? She's got a clip. I just met her with a clipboard. And she's like, all right, well, I have cousin Andy as an alternate just in case.
This is exactly what happened.
Yes, I love it.
Of course she did, though. I'm not mad. Like, of course she did. So I was like, no, I know. Maya's like on my side. I'm like, no, I know. She's feeling the type of way. We think she's gonna do it. I said, but I will be the backup in case she can't do it. No worries. I got it taken care of. And she's like, okay. So we get close, and Maya's like, I can't do it. I don't think I can do it. I'm like, I understand. I said, I will do it if you can't do it. But you told me you could do it, and I think you can. Just so you know. And then she's like, I'll see. So then we get close to the start of the mass, and she goes, she had kind of calmed down. Her face is all splotchy. She's like, does it look like I've been crying? I'm like, yes, it does. Yes, it does. But that's okay. This is what funerals are for. You're supposed to cry at a funeral, if any place. So I'm like, do you think you can do it? She's like, would you come up with me? And I'm like, I will be there. I will come up with you if you want me to, which is not normal, but I'm like, sure. I don't care. I will do it. So I'm like, yeah, I'll come up with you. And then she goes, what if I can just do 2 and then you do the rest of them? And I'm like, listen, I'll be there. But again, I think you can do this. So we get through. This part comes towards near the end of mass. So she's been sitting there not crying for a while. And then I'm like, next to her, I'm like, I think you have to go up soon. She's like, I know when you go up, I do this. I'm like, okay.
Okay.
You turned it on. So this was the moment of levity that you're speaking of. So the priest, who doesn't know it, this is a church in Ohio that we don't go to anymore. My mom, this priest didn't even really know my mom, but did put on a very nice mass for her. He goes, "Can Maya come up?" Maya's doing the reading. And I was like, ooh, okay. So I'm like, it's fine, just get out of the bench. We're gonna go do this. So we walk up, and then he does it like a third time because he's like, "Oh, hello, Maya." No. And I go, it's Maya. It's Maya. And then he goes, "Maya." And she goes, "Yes, Maya." And everybody kind of chuckles a little bit. And he was like, "Oh, well, I'm so sorry, Maya." He's like, are you gonna do it? And she's like, "I'm gonna do the reading right there." And he's like, "Well, I'm gonna go sit down over there if that's okay with you." And she's like, and so everybody got a big chuckle out of the screw up of the name, the correction of the name. He's like trying to make a joke out of it, which was fantastic, kind of put everybody at ease. Everybody's like laughing, and now we've sort of broken that heavy grief, like you said, to do it. And she steps up there, and when I tell you, she nailed it.
Yes,
nailed it. I mean, not a word mispronounced, not a shaky voice. She didn't speed through it. She raised her little hand up when everybody else was supposed to say the thing. I was just beaming, just because I knew the transformation that had just taken place from I can't do this to knocking it out of the park. So, I mean,
core memory.
She did it. Yeah.
Core memory unlocked. Did you, well, two, I wanted to mention your brother. Very attractive.
Oh, thanks.
I saw that in the photos. I was like, that's a boy version of Holly.
Ooh. It is. I never thought that, by the way. We always, in my mind, looked so different until very recently, like within the last couple years. I'm like, oh, I see it now. I see it.
Let me see. I don't think I saw.
Usually you see it, girl. I was gonna ask you, did you get any stories from any family members from your mom, whether they were ridiculous or anything? You learned anything?
You know what? I only learned one thing. What was weirdly missing, and I thought about this, and maybe I was just in a bit of a daze, which is very possible.
Which is, understandable.
Absolutely. So I may have just missed this, but what there weren't a lot of times when I go through, like when you have a funeral or something, there's a lot of sharing of your favorite memories of the person.
Right.
And I felt like there wasn't a lot of that. For some reason. I don't know why. And it also happened that way when I posted online. Like nobody shared stories. And now a lot of the people are older and not on Facebook or whatever that could have. But I just feel like I'm missing that component.
Did they just not do it, or?
Yeah, it just didn't come up.
Oh,
like we never had a moment where we were all just sharing stories about mom necessarily. And there was one lady that I had never met, but she said she was friends with my mom in high school, and 6 of the girls, she said, had gone to New York City when they were like seniors in high school or something. And I was like, what? I'm like, I think I vaguely remember that. And she's like, and your mom was just having a blast visiting the Empire State Building. And I'm like, okay, go ahead, Margaret. So that was one cool thing that I feel like I might have known, but I didn't really realize that she just took a random trip with 5 friends in the 60s
trip.
to go to New York City.
Okay. Come on, uptown girl.
I know, and I think about it, and my mom being so like protective of me, like she wouldn't even let me go to downtown Cleveland with my friends. She was like, absolutely not.
That's because she knew what she was getting up to in New York, and she said, I want you repeating what I did.
Clearly. So that was what I got. And then this is why I really appreciate my brother. At the dinner we had on Saturday night, he did 2 really cool things, which I never would have been able to do because I was the caregiver for so long. And for me, some of the heavy bad memories are just now finally starting to break and clear a little bit. And I'm starting to finally, like the New York story, have memories of my mom that didn't involve death and dementia and the bad stuff, right? So I was like stuck in that. Patrick wasn't. I mean, he was in Ohio. He couldn't help that much. So at the dinner, he reminded me of this. He was like, they have a Touch Tunes karaoke, not karaoke, but like at the bar we were at, where you can play your own music. He's like, we have to play One Toke Over the Line for Mom. And I was like, oh my God, yes, we do. I had forgotten. It was this song from the 60s or 70s. It's like, one toke over the line, sweet Jesus, one toke over the. And so my mom had shared this with my brother and I. because it had come on a playlist or something, and she was like, "Oh, I know that guy that wrote that song. I went to high school with his son, like that's the whatever it was, Brewer and Shipley, who did it." She's like, "I went to high school with Shipley." And my dad is at the dinner. He's like, "Oh yeah, we live near him too." And I'm like, "Dad, what?" Because at the time, back in high school, when my mom was telling my brother and I this, and she was singing One Toke Over the Line, Patrick and I were like, "What?" And he was like, "Do you know what that means?" And Mom's like, "No, it just means they're having a fun time." And I'm like, "No, that is not what that means. They were doing dope, Mom." And she's like, "No, it wasn't." I'm like, "It was. Yes, it was." So that he put that song on, and we got to sing that one. And then what he did that was really cool is we all get our drinks, and then he was like, "We need one Michelob Ultra," and I'm like, "Are you drinking a Michelob Ultra?" He's like, "No, Mom always drank Michelob Ultras." And I was like, "Oh, I forgot." Yes, she did, but not with me. Like once she started living with me, her game was sweet red wine.
Yeah, that's what I always think about, that jug of, what is it, a Stella? Yeah. Whenever I'm at the store and I see that wine, I'm like, "Ooh, come on, Miss Margaret, that's your wine right there."
She had a giant jug of this red wine at all times present, ready to offer it to somebody. But I forgot, like prior to that, whenever we would go out, she would always order herself a Mich Ultra because there wasn't that many calories and whatever. It was a light beer. So she loved Mich Ultras. So my brother wrote, her name on the napkin and, date of death, date of birth, and just poured out the beer, and it just kind of sat there at the table with us. And I was like, that was cool. I was really glad that he did that just as a little memento. Yeah, so
I love
shouts out to that one.
By the way, I looked up your Instagram because this didn't pop up for me yesterday.
Oh,
I've known Patrick now for 15 years. Bitch don't grow up. I was like, okay, Patrick O'Connor. When I first met him, he was a boy, it was in high school. And so
I think, yes, he graduated high school in 2008.
Yeah. So
we met each other that year.
Yeah. So I was like, hold on, I'm gonna pull this up. I was like,
oh boy.
So he's only 3 years older than me.
Okay. He's my little brother. He's my little baby.
Now he a man.
Okay.
That's right.
I was like, okay, Patrick O'Connor.
Oh,
yes, honey.
Well, I told him because, I was like, that hair looks good on you. You should keep your hair like that for a while. I was like, look at you being all in style and everything.
Yeah, and that little goatee and the mustache.
I like it.
No,
like he don't growed up, honey.
Okay. Oh, Carmen.
Okay, that's great. Well, that's fantastic.
Gotta go to Ohio right now.
Yeah. Wow.
Take a little day trip.
No. Wow. Wow. Thanks a lot. That's great.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm so glad that you got to experience all of that, Holly, and just sending you and your family so much. Oh wait, how was Tim?
You know exactly how Tim was.
Did he show any emotion?
Who's Tim?
Not
Holly's dad.
Oh,
it was my dad. I think I could be absolutely wrong, but I think he was quieter than usual, if that's possible. So he may have been going through something,
wow. Okay.
I think he may have been. Like, that's his ex-wife. That's the mother of his children. Like, maybe he was just dealing with stuff.
Wow.
He was like extra quiet. The only thing my dad did do was when we were at the dinner, because I think a lot of us agree, just a lot of us, my friends, family, we can all agree Maya is an awful lot like her dad. She just is.
Mm-hmm.
You take after various traits of parents, and she's got a lot of me in her, but she's a lot like her dad in a lot of aspects. Well, my dad, because Maya was playing some claw machines at this sports bar that we were at, my dad leans over and did a claw grip on my shoulder and was like, "You know how much she's like you? She's like you a whole lot, Peanut." And I was like, "Okay, Dad. Yeah, I know she's playing the claw machine." He's like, "Oh no." He did that. He does this chuckle. She's like you. That's your kid. I was like, "Okay, all right, I got it." So that was his one thing that he basically. So Tim was good though. I think he's doing just good.
Oh, good. I love doing my impression of Tim O'Connor at the kitchen table in the morning when Holly and Patrick are young. He has glasses on his nose. He's reading the newspaper. He's like, Peanut,
yep.
What's doing over there? What's going on?
He always had the newspaper and his cup of coffee with the spoon in it still. And he's like looking at you from over the rim of it. And he's not saying anything. So I would just talk again all the time. And you'd just be like, yeah.
What you doing?
Just sort of grunts. That's okay.
Oh, well, love, hearts to you, Holly, and your family.
Thank you. Thank you.
If you want to ask us something, use the iHeartRadio Talkback feature. We're going to start doing this throughout the podcast. We mentioned it in the beginning, but especially for those watching, if you came in later, if you go to the iHeartRadio app and just type in Hits 96.1, and you'll see a little microphone and just hit that, and you can leave a message. And so throughout the next few weeks, and however many we get, we'll start to answer some of those questions. So you can ask us individually if it's a question for Holly or Kelbin or myself, or if you're like, hey, I want all of you to answer this question, feel free to do that. And then we'll just drop them in the podcast as we go throughout the week. And just download the iHeartRadio app. All right, we will see you back here on Wednesday. Bye.
Miguel and Holly Uncensored.
Catch it on the iHeartRadio app or anywhere you listen to podcasts.